You want me to put that on my todger?
With love, Meghan. Holiday Banality. Hello, I'm hgtudor. As you know, earlier this year we were subjected to part 1 of With Love, Meghan, this one's wife's dull and banal lifestyle programme, which was roundly ridiculed. We then were treated to part 2, even though it was held out as season 2. Nobody was fooled, it was part 2 of season 1. And now, rounding out what has been a truly disastrous year for the Duchess of Delusion, more about that on another occasion, we get part 3 of season 1. Billed as a holiday celebration, 'tis the season this one's wife shares her favourite holiday traditions, seasonal crafts and family recipes with friends, old and new, in this festive special. We all know that this was filmed in the summer of 2024. Indeed, that is confirmed by simply glancing outside the window and seeing the summer foliage outside. But what of the programme? Well, I decided that I would, as Stanley Tucci urged everybody in The Devil Wears Prada, to gird my loins and dive in to see if it's much of the same as we've experienced before, which is what I predict, and whether there are any narcissistic gems that I can pluck out of the quagmire of her banality to share with you in order to further your knowledge about the behaviour of this one's wife. Fortunately, with it being only one episode, I thought, well, given that I didn't watch the entirety of either part 1 or part 2, I only indulged in a couple of episodes of each just to understand the flavour of what was going on and to report on her narcissism with some degree of authority. I thought, well, I'll see how far I can get with this episode, and it remains to be seen whether I'll make it to the end or not. First of all, where to find it? Well, as you know, it's on Netflix, and it appeared at midnight Pacific time. Naturally, I'm somewhat ahead of that, being in the United Kingdom, and it certainly wasn't heralded on Netflix front page. It wasn't in the top 10, too early for even an attempt on that, even if it might get into the top 10, which one doubts. It wasn't portrayed as a new arrival at the head of the series of programmes that were available to review. No, indeed, you had to scroll down, down, down and find it lurking amongst casual viewing with recently added upon it. So unless you banged it into the search function or scrolled through deliberately to find it, you wouldn't necessarily come upon it as casually viewing, ironically enough. But what do we have? What is it that this one's wife is going to present us with? Well, in order to ensure that you don't go into a comatose state or that you find yourself vomiting too much to the extent that your stomach muscles are positively aching, I'm going to break it down into some bite-sized chunks. And we start off with some jaunty Christmas music and being treated to the vocal fry of this one's wife asking, "Where's Ruth?" Yeah. This one's wife is out amongst the Christmas trees, and she meets Ruth, who apparently is declared as the tree spotter. Yeah. Well, that must be a fairly easy job, because they're surrounded by them, so there's not a lot of work involved in that particular role, as described by this one's wife. This one's wife is wearing Wellington boots, which is all part of cultivating an image of her being out in the countryside, when in actual fact she's at a Christmas tree, or a holiday tree as presumably she would describe it, in a lot with no need to wear boots at all because there's no mud, there's no ice, there's no snow. But naturally, it's performative as ever from this one's wife. Presumably, she's not well acquainted with Ruth, other than having met her through this programme, but nevertheless, Ruth is subjected naturally to a hug, because this one's wife is a hugger, and therefore she moves in with a direct physical assertion of control. This one's wife informs us that she's looking for an 8 to 9 foot tree. Something in finance, blue eyes. Oh no, I'm getting my idiots muddled up. She wanders around telling us things such as, this tree's too tall, thanks for that, and also that this one's already been sold, thanks for that. What gripping television this is, and this is all within the first minute. If, and this is highly unlikely, you'd happened upon this television programme by chance, you would be immediately thinking, who is this fucking idiot and why am I watching this? And you go off and find something else, much more productive to do. Eventually, a tree is selected. Huzzah! And there we have it, the first seal clap within less than 2 minutes of the programme starting, as this one's wife shows how jolly pleased she is with herself. Well, the tree has been bought. No information about what you might need to look for when you buy a Christmas tree, perhaps advocating the various differences and advantages and disadvantage between, let's say, picking a spruce or a pine tree. Nothing about the maintenance of said Christmas tree. Nothing about what you need to look for in terms of the shape. Perhaps ensuring, for instance, that it isn't crooked part way down so that when you get it home and you put it into your base, you realise, oh dear, it's leaning to one side. I remember many years ago, a place I lived in had an absolutely huge ceiling and a beautiful bay window, which lent itself particularly to having a beautiful Christmas tree in it. So off I went and bought one. It was huge. It must have been at least 12 feet in height, I would suggest. The usual stand that one would have really was insufficient, and instead what I had to go out do is pop out in the dead of night and avail myself of a particularly solid and heavy traffic cone. Not the ordinary standard, but one of the real big meaty ones, which had a particularly heavy base on it, so that I could lop off the top of the cone and insert the tree into it, so it provided it with a steady base. It worked rather well, and wrapping paper around the base hid what it actually was. But it's considerations such as those, the height of the tree, the weight of the tree, how you might ensure that you get the right one for the base, the longevity of the tree, all things like that that you might be interested in, with some interesting tips which presumably the tree spotter could share. But no, this one's wife isn't interested in any of that. She just wants to be filmed gallivanting around amongst some trees, pointing out that that one's too tall and that one's been sold. Anyway, with tree purchased, it's back to the house to decorate it. And we're subjected to a pearl of wisdom from this one's wife, who tells us, when I string the lights on a tree, I do so inside, so it's lit from within and on the border. The same with ornaments. You want to find the placement where they're going to find their light. Yeah. She then continues in this vein by explaining, there's something about the tree that in one area in your house, you're really able to encapsulate your family story. Really feel the passage of time and the different chapters of your life through the ornaments. What the fuck is this dullard talking about? All you see her do is put some various gold-coloured baubles onto the tree. And the tree does look rather nice, I have to admit. But how does that equate to telling your family story? They're not baubles with people's pictures in, which might tell a story, which some people do place on the tree. No, they're just gold ornaments. So how does that equate to telling any kind of story? As usual, the mouth flaps, the gums move back and forth, and you're just treated to these fridge magnet beige platitudes of utter banality. There's nothing about how you might want to consider where you place the baubles, just some vague reference to placement. There's nothing about what colours you might use. No, basically, I've bought a tree because it's Christmas, and now I've decorated the tree. So that's filled some time. It is not the most auspicious of openings. In fact, it just demonstrates what a dullard this woman is. But tree bought, we're on to some crafting next. Yes, as you all know, this one's wife is absolutely skilled with her fingers when it comes to sticking them into Harry's bottom. But are they particularly skilled when it comes to actually crafting something? Well, the answer to that is no. She's making an advent calendar. And you'll be amazed to learn that according to this one's wife, there's a surprise and a delight for 24 days until you get to Christmas. No fucking way. Is that what an advent calendar is? All these years on the planet and I never realised what its purpose was. Thank goodness that this one's wife has enlightened me. She also tells us they're not supposed to be big things, they're supposed to be small gestures. Ah, right, that's where I've been going wrong. I've always built an advent calendar the size of a fucking house and put inside great big gifts like cars and rowing machines and things like that. Yeah, that's where I've been going wrong. Oh, this one's wife, if only you'd come along years ago, you could have saved me so much time and effort. But what's this one's wife popping into the advent calendar? But, well, we don't really know because it's just small gestures. Apart from the fact, we don't know what gifts that she's putting in, but she's writing some cards. Yes, in a shuddering moment that brought back images of bananas, she writes, "I love you because you are so kind. I love you because you are so brave." What are these? Are they notes? No. According to this one's wife, they are little findings. Yes, she has the littles, she has learnings, and now we have little findings. She explains that one should try to really embrace and lean into making every day of that month special and embrace the touches that bring you joy. A mention of joy, of course. Now, what are the advent calendars? Well, they actually look like oversized stockings. Who's made them? Not her. She doesn't show you how to make them. She just starts stuffing little boxes and these shitty little notes into them. There's no instruction whatsoever about making the calendar aspect itself, sewing it, putting it together. It's just her sticking little boxed gifts inside and the notes in this oversized stocking while blathering on. Again, somebody else has already done the preparatory work, and even if you were interested in doing what she's doing, she doesn't tell you how you ought to do it. Anyway, enough of the crafting. It's time to get into the kitchen. And first, she has to pay a visit to the chalkboard, where she writes, "'Tis the seasoning." So witty. And what seasonal salmonella delights are we going to be treated to in the kitchen? Well, apparently she tells us that her first guest is someone called Will Guidera, who is an American restaurateur, apparently based in New York. Naturally, this one's wife tells us that she met him years ago, and she's going to be making some gougères. So we watch her make some gougères while she's wearing jewellery. She tells us at one point, "It smells like fondue. You've never heard anyone say fondant." And she gives a little look as if to say, "I'm fucking hilarious." The director gives a short laugh out of obligation. She pipes the gougère and then pats them with her finger. And then she bangs on repeatedly about dabbing the gougères, and then puts them in an unheated oven. She then explains that she wants to talk about what happens as you grow up and elevate what you eat, but then doesn't. She explains she's going to make something called reindeer chow, which hitherto was known as puppy chow, and apparently it's going to be the perfect gift for Will to take home to his wife. She also lets us know that her elementary maths teacher, Miss Linda, loved puppy chow. Thanks for that. We're really interested in that aspect of your life. Then there is a breakthrough moment. It is something that nobody has ever witnessed before in relation to watching this one's wife. It's seismic in its implications. Yes, she washes her hands, having got chocolate all over them, which looks like a particularly grotty scene from a bedroom with Harry. She then goes, ew, and then washes the chocolate off. We actually see her washing her hands. Next, she tells us that 2 cups of sugar. Wow, that's a lot of sugar. The insights just keep coming, don't they? They're absolutely sensational. She then gets particularly excited when it comes to sprinkling white powder everywhere. Clearly, there's a massive association between icing powder and something else that she enjoys. The gougères are removed. There's no steam from the oven, of course, and she then spoons the reindeer chow into a jar, labels it reindeer chow with some over-elaborative cursive, and stands back and looks rather pleased with herself. So, in this first part of part 3, we've been treated to jaunty Christmas music as she selects a tree, decorates a tree, sticks some things in pockets on advent calendars, writes something ridiculous on a chalkboard, and then makes some gougères and some reindeer chow. As ever, doesn't explain anything about how to do it as we wait the arrival of Will.